What's up, guys? Frantic here, and welcome to the Sunday Show, where I like to talk about music I've been listening to, go in depth with it, in hopes that you will enjoy it. This week, I'm going to be talking about the band I talked about last week, but with a different album, Pain of Salvation's Remedy Lane. Let's jump into it. Last week, I covered their newest album, In the Passing Light of Day, and if you will recall, I loved it. If you haven't watched that episode, I would highly recommend checking it out, but it's not necessarily needed to understand this next episode. This is not episodic, it's just episodic is really what I'm trying to say. Anyways, Remedy Lane, one of my favorite albums of all time. This album is amazing in a lot of different ways. It's one of the best concept albums I've heard for a while. Not to say that it is the best, but I think it's one of the best that is out there. So, Remedy Lane covers a lot of different things, and it does talk a lot about sex. So you'll notice that when I analyze Pain of Salvation, I tend to talk about roughly two things: sex and religion, and I think that's what they talk about a lot in their music. So it's only natural, right? Not to say that's all I'm ever thinking about, if anyone ever thought that. Remedy Lane, what's so good about it? A lot of things, really. If we went track by track through this, I'd be sitting here talking to you for the next hour. I'm not going to do that, but I would love to. Not going to lie. This album starts off and introduces you to two characters. The first character being a younger boy and another character being a slightly older woman, that 12 to 14 range. And it talks about sex right in the beginning. How he kind of was forced to do things he wasn't too sure that he should be doing, and it's almost as if he was taken advantage of. So it's a reverse effect of what a lot of people think, where it's like an older boy takes advantage of his younger sibling, like cousin or something like that. That's already controversial to talk about, and I'm not going to really dig into where it's controversial. It just paints a picture that carries through this character, the male character, throughout the entire album. So this scars him, essentially, to where sex is always in and out of his life. And that's what covers this entire album, basically, is the lust that he suffers from. Now, that's not to say it's a bad thing. Like, you can have lust. It's just his problem is too much of it. So a lot of the album takes place in Budapest. And Budapest is another area of his life where everything changes. So he lives wherever it is that he is, probably in Europe, because that's where the band is from. But when he goes to Budapest, he becomes someone different. He lusts for the prostitutes he finds and things like that are just in the area, women that he wants to be with, and he slowly loses the love for the person he's with. And that's the overarching theme of everything that happens here. Starts off with a lot of different stuff, him in Budapest. An ending theme, he talks about he woke up in Budapest and whoever he's with is leaving him because of all these issues. It moves on to the Fandango, which is a really interesting song, not necessarily talking about, it talks about a dance, but it's not necessarily a dance traditionally. It's more of a dance where two people are playing in and out. Imagine on a date trying to figure out the ins and outs of this person. And it's someone observing that from afar. That's how I've always interpreted the Fandango. Followed by A Trace of Blood, which is a heart-wrenching story that you listen to. If you don't understand what happens, it's basically two lovers are having a child, and the woman miscarries, and they are just dreaded, just sad. That's all it is. Moving through each track, it just keeps... There's different stories that all kind of go into one full story, and it's not necessarily in order. And that's where the hardest part about analyzing this album comes in, is figuring out where all the pieces go together. Now, I'm not going to sit here and list track by track where they go, but just to explain it is essentially a man falls in love, but his escapism to Budapest causes the unraveling of everything around him. And so, if I had to recommend songs off this album, first off, I would hope that you listen through the album front to back, because it is truly amazing. I'm not lying here. But when you get to the very end, Beyond the Pale, that is easily one of my favorite songs I think Pain of Salvation's ever done. And it is powerful. If you understand all the messages, everything, the symbolism, all of it that comes with this album, that song alone should sell you on this album, because it's amazing. There's just so many good songs that it's hard to sit here and say, listen to 1, 2, or 3. Listen through it all the way through, but if you really only want to go for a couple of songs, I would have to say Beyond the Pale is easily the best song on the album. There's also A Trace of Blood. I would have to say Rope Ends, which is a very weird song that talks about a woman wanting to commit suicide. There's also Waking Every God. It reminds me a lot of Rush. It's just a crazy good album that I would say 10 out of 10 would recommend. If you liked In the Light of Passing Day, you would definitely like this album. And what's interesting is In the Light of Passing Day calls back to this album in the same sense of ending theme. Because ending theme, the song, has a certain melody that's recalled back in the Light of Passing Day. Are they connected? I don't know. I don't think so. They could be, though. It's just haven't enough time to dive into it and say yes or no. Anyways, guys, I hope that was a good enough episode for you today. I honestly have only been listening to In the Light of Passing Day, so when it comes to recommending something this week, I didn't have too much to say. It was just I figured I could connect this to something the album was already connected to. So I really like Remedy Lane. I would love to go even more in depth with it. My real plan was only just to say, go listen to it, check out these songs. If anyone would be interested in a much, much longer in-depth video, and I mean it would take quite a while to dig through this entire album, probably like a 30-minute video, I wouldn't be opposed to doing that. I really like talking about it. But in the sense of the Sunday Show, broad overview. Hope you like that album if you do give it a listen. It's very, very, very good. I love it. But beyond that, guys, what are you listening to this week? I'd love to hear it. Love to give it a listen. Maybe give it a shout out on the next episode. What are you thinking of In the Light of Passing Day? As in, have you listened to it? If you haven't, it's okay. I'm not going to be upset. But if you have listened to it, what do you think of it? It's blowing my mind every time I listen through it. Not going to lie. It's amazing. It's almost an understatement to say that. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you liked In the Light of Passing Day, like I said. Either way, I'll see you guys next time.